So, Megan, are we live right now? You're on mute. Megan, you're still on mute.
Jokes? Yes, we are live. There are 26 people watching me talk, even though I'm on mute. It's a great start. Great start to our first ever Wusa Town Hall.
Hi, Cannon. All right. Let me know when everyone, I guess give me a thumbs up when you're all ready to get started, and I'll welcome everyone into this space. Excellent. Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Wusa's first ever town hall. We're very excited to be doing this with you and have the opportunity to answer your questions and listen to your concerns for the spring term and the fall. I hope that we can use this space as an opportunity to help direct our advocacy goals for the fall term and continue to work for you as best as we can. Before we begin the question and answer and discussion portion, I would like to acknowledge that the University of Waterloo and the Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association are situated on the Haldeman Tract, nearly 4,000 square kilometers that were promised to the Six Nations. We are on the traditional unceded territory of the Attawandaron, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. Right now, our students are scattered all over the world, and as we are in this unusual situation of attending Waterloo virtually, I encourage you to take a moment to think about where you are today and how you can acknowledge and honor the Indigenous peoples who are the original inhabitants of this land. You can learn more about your connections to the land at nativeland.ca, and I'll provide a link for you in the chat to take a look and see where you are in this world. So I guess I'll go over our plans for this evening. So I'm hoping that the executive can do some introductions because we haven't been able to meet in person. So we'll do some introductions, talk a little bit about our annual plan, and then we'll turn it over to you and you can ask us all of your questions. I guess to provide a little bit of a background on the annual plan, we've developed a 6-pillar plan to guide our work for the remainder of our terms in office. It's a very important first note that will showcase our key initiatives and focal points. We have many other goals to accomplish that weren't in the plan, including even more from our staff and part-time staff and student volunteers. In the coming months, we'll be working very hard and following up with you and communicating our progress on this plan. It's very important to us that we maintain transparency as we work towards accomplishing our goals. We'll also be working very closely with our associate vice presidents and supported by all of our full-time staff. So we're very excited to be creating this meaningful change to help improve your experience at the University of Waterloo. So I'd like to provide the executive with an opportunity to introduce themselves, share one goal or a couple from the annual plan that you're most excited to accomplish. And because I'm already talking, I'll begin. So hi, everyone. My name is Abby, and I'm your Wusa president. I'm in my 4A term of Recreation and Leisure and Social Development Studies. And I had the opportunity of working with your VPs to put together the 2020-2021 annual plan. Some of the goals that I'm most excited about accomplishing this year is our review of the Student Life Endowment Fund application process and the inclusions of funding opportunities for equity initiatives on our campus. I guess additionally, as someone who's been very involved in orientation, I'm also excited to be working on an agreement with the university to improve and increase Wusa's involvement in Orientation Week decision making. So that's a little bit about me. I'll now call on the executive to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their goals for the year. I'm going to start kind of in order that I see everyone on my screen. So Megan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Megan Town. I am your Wusa Vice President Education. I just finished my degree in chemical engineering, so I'm very excited to be done that. I guess one goal that I'm really excited about this year is the goal to expand our research capacity. Often we have a lot of students coming to us with asks, and like it's not always clear right off the top of our heads how to address those concerns and what we can do to solve those problems. So expanding our research capacity is going to mean hiring more full-time staff and more student staff to do that research and help us figure out what those solutions are and find the evidence that we need in order to talk to the people who make the changes to make that happen. So I'm excited to announce that this has already started. So we're going to be hiring Wusa's first student research and policy assistant, and they will be starting in September, reporting to me. So look forward to all of the awesome research that that person is going to be putting out.
Thank you, Megan. All right, who do I see next on my screen? Alana, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Elena. I'm the VP Operations and Finance this year for Wusa, and I think two of the main things that I'm really excited about this year are to work on the implementation of the Bomber plan. I used to work at Bomber, and it means a lot to me, and I'm really, really excited to be involved in that. And the second thing is to work with our commercial operations staff in providing a lot of job opportunities for students, because I think financial security is a huge part in students' mental health. And I'm really looking forward to being able to provide those opportunities where I can.
Amazing. Thanks, Elena. And I guess last but not least, we have Nada. Go ahead. Oh, Nada, you're on mute.
Hello! Can you hear me now? Okay, I basically said half of my presentation while I was on mute. That's
I
totally
still
fine.
can't hear Nada. Are you having trouble? Anyone else?
I can hear her.
Can you still hear me?
Interesting.
Can you hear me now? Abby, can you hear me? It could be your
Okay, so I guess it's just me. So go ahead, Nada.
Okay. Sorry about that little hiccup. So my name's Nada, and I'm your Vice President of Student Life. I'm in that weird stage between third and fourth year of my biomedical undergrad, biomedical sciences undergrad degree. Still figuring out what to do, just like a lot of you here. So in terms of one of my goals for this fiscal year, I'm really passionate about our volunteers within the Student Association, and so I want to make sure that all of our volunteers are getting the most out of what they volunteer with in Wusa, whether it's a club, whether it's a service, or even just Welcome Week. So something that I really want to work on is to create some sort of system that ensures that our volunteers are getting what they like out of their volunteer experience. So that can be shaped through professional development, that can be shaped through some sort of certificate, some sort of reference. So all those details will be worked out soon. But that is something that I'm really passionate about and will hopefully be working to accomplish before the end of this year. So yeah, and I will bring it back to Abby.
Want more water?
Thank you, everyone. I wish that we could get to know every single person in the audience, but to be honest, I don't know how this application works, so I don't think that we can do that. But if you do want to drop your name in the chat and say a little bit about yourself, I'll be happy to read it. Take yourself. Okay. I will be moderating this discussion this evening. You can submit your questions in the Ask Your Question box. Megan's still laughing at me. at the bottom of your screen. So there's this really cool feature where you can upvote oh wow, I'm sounding really old. There's this cool feature where you can upvote the questions if you want them to come up to the top. So if you see some questions in there that you really want an answer to, you can just upvote them and I'll be sure to bring them up next and direct them to the right executive. There's also the fun chat box that I've already mentioned. Go ahead and start some conversations in there and we'll be happy to respond and really have some fun with this kind of first take at a town hall. Other than that, I'd like to kind of start turning it over to you. So I'm going to go to the Ask a Question box and go to the first question with the most upvotes. So I'll read the question out loud. Why don't students in the spring term get a reading week? So Megan, I'm going to direct this question over to you.
Sure. Yeah, this is an interesting question. And the answer honestly comes down to that there is not enough days in the calendar. In most calendar years, the spring term starts almost directly after the winter term. And then the exam period in spring term is a little bit shorter because there's 2 weeks typically in between the end of exams for the spring term and the beginning of classes or orientation for the fall term. So that 2 weeks is time that both students, staff, and faculty can use to kind of rest and rejuvenate and prepare for the next school year to start. So the long and the short of it is there's not enough days in the year to take time off in the middle of the spring term.
Thank you, Megan. I'll move on to the next question here. So this next question is from Evelyn. So multiple sexual assault and harassment allegations have been made against a student attending UW. An anonymous UW student reported an incident to the school, but it was dismissed. Another victim, a student from McMaster, was brave enough to publicly share their devastating story on her social media. The accused was not only harmed by students of our community, but other schools as well. What actions will be taken against the accused student? If it's all right with the executive, I'd like to take this question. So I've been working closely with a group of students, including Tassin, who are brave enough to share their stories with me. So I'm working along with Megan, with Amanda Cook to get some answers for you on some of these next steps. So the Sexual Violence and Response Office works with students to discuss the incidents directly with them in a confidential manner. I would also say, as a Waterloo student myself, I am apprehensive about a student who's confessed to this type of behavior being on our campus, and I do hope that if there is a legal case brought to the authorities, that charges are pressed and that the university will not allow the individual to continue their studies with us. But really all I can do right now to say like what will happen is I can really only speak for Wusa, and Wusa is hoping to expand our sexual violence prevention and response policy to include a code of conduct for all members participating in Wusa activities. And we also hope to provide more education for our students, and that also includes some training as well. We'll continue to work with Amanda Cook, and Cannon, to answer your question, she's the Director of Sexual Violence Prevention and Response, to get some of these resources to better not only our organization, but help improve the University of Waterloo as a whole. There was a comment on this question as well that I will also take some time to address. So that is, how can UW create a safe space for survivors to speak up when their policy only allows them to legally investigate situations that have occurred on UW property? And that is also a really good question. And we talked to Amanda Cook about this one as well. And there is currently a review of Policy 42, which is prevention of and response to sexual violence. So we are working with Amanda to collect feedback for this policy from students, so that we can really do a review that works for and is better and safer for students on our campus. So if you would like to share your feedback on Policy 42, you can do so through Amanda Cook, or if you want to keep some of your feedback anonymous or you feel more comfortable sharing it with one of your executive, please feel free to send us an email at exec@wusa.ca or contact me directly at pres@wusa.ca, and I'm more than happy to bring that feedback forward on your behalf. Thank you again for that question. I will move on to the next question. What is currently being done to support club activities? Will there be any support offered for new club execs in regards to the new format for the spring and fall terms? So Nada, I'm going to direct this question over to you.
Hello. So currently our club operations are running the same way that they did, except for the fact that clubs can't hold events that are to be in gatherings, so everything needs to be online. So in terms of what is currently being done to support club activities, we still have our clubs manager working every day to support our clubs and to answer questions when necessary, as well as to approve event forms, so that's still going on. Clubs can still hold events, of course, but the nature of it is definitely different now that we are online. And the support offered to new club execs in regards to the new format of the spring and the fall term. So regarding the support offered to new club execs, for club execs, there's always at the beginning of the term a particular, sorry, I was reading the comments. Sorry. So a particular training that occurs for presidents and executives of the club. And so that is also led by our club's manager, and it will still be happening at the beginning of our fall term. But let's say you missed that beginning of the fall term, like the first month or so, and you're still starting out your club in the middle of the term, you can always reach out at clubs.manager@wusa.ca, and our clubs manager would gladly go over everything that you need to know as a club exec to maintain your club and keep it running all term long.
Thank you, Nada. So the next question is there anything that can be done with respect to making textbooks non-mandatory? So Megan, I'll direct this question to you.
Sure. Gosh, I don't have many good answers for people today because unfortunately the answer to this question is essentially no. It falls pretty much in the hands of the instructor to choose what learning materials they want to use to support their courses. And there are certain kind of guidelines in place, particularly surrounding online resources, like an online module that an instructor might use to administer quizzes. But in terms of textbooks, right now, there unfortunately isn't any guideline for the cost of those items. So I think that this is a great piece of feedback. And I'm actually sitting on a little bit of a task force that is reviewing those guidelines surrounding the cost of online learning materials. And I'm going to see if we can open up that conversation to talk about physical learning materials as well, because I know some of my textbooks were in the realm of $200, which if you're taking 5 courses amounts to a crazy amount of money for something that you might not necessarily be getting value out of after your course is done.
Thank you, Megan. The next question is, what steps are being taken to prevent the use of privacy invasive online proctoring tools? Megan, I'll pass this to you.
Sure. So this is a question that came to Students' Council last month, and it's regarding the few courses that this term are choosing to use online proctoring software. So an online proctoring software is essentially a way for a student to take a proctored exam without having to physically be in the same room as an instructor or a TA who would be proctoring that exam. The reason why the university originally started exploring this technology is for online courses where if a student is, for example, out of the country, they might have to go to an embassy or to a local institution to find someone to proctor their exam. And that can end up actually being quite expensive for the student. So the online proctoring software allows students to use their computer in order for the software to proctor their exams so they can avoid that cost. And students have raised some really significant and important concerns about online proctoring software. First of all, there are privacy and security concerns because the software is essentially locking down your computer. So it needs quite a bit of access on a computer level. Pardon me, I'm in chemical engineering. And so there's a data concern where the software has access to who you are, what you look like, what your computer is doing. And so if the company were ever to have a data breach, that could have quite significant implications for the student. There's also a question which a student raised about the implicit bias that can be present in these sorts of softwares that use essentially machine learning to figure out what a student might look like on their camera if they were trying to cheat. And oftentimes the data sets that are used to train these algorithms have inherent biases against people of color. So there's a significant equity concern that these softwares are more likely to be flagging students of color for potential academic infractions than they would be flagging their non-racialized peers. So what I did in response to all of these concerns is drafted a letter that I sent to the Center for Extended Learning at the University of Waterloo, which is the department that's responsible for this project. And unfortunately, I haven't received a formal response from them yet. I've actually been following up with both the director for the Center of Extended Learning as well as David Davidi, who is the Associate Vice President Academic for the university. So I would like to assure students that I'm not going to let this fall off the radar. I am continuing to follow up with these key people, but unfortunately, I don't think that the university is going to go back on their decision to use online proctoring software. And the direction that I'm trying to focus on is making sure that students' concerns surrounding privacy, security, and equity are adequately addressed. And I guess adequately perhaps isn't the strongest word I could pick, not just adequately, but completely addressed so that students don't feel like they are being forced to use this software to their detriment. I'll also put in the chat a couple of links that have some frequently asked questions that the Center for Extended Learning put together on online proctoring software. And if there's any follow-up questions, I'd be happy to take those as well.
Thank you, Megan. The next question looks like it's also for Megan. Will Woosa be advocating for a credit, no credit option this fall? This could be vital for students who struggle with online courses and learning, as some students have insufficient resources, are not able to succeed with online learning, have master study applications relying on this term, etc.
Sorry, folks, there's about 3 buttons I have to click every time I'm going to answer a question, so we make sure it gets recorded properly. So this is the first that I've heard of students having interest in credit, no credit grading scheme for the fall. At the end of winter term, the credit, no credit option was offered because of kind of the sudden shift from in-person to online. It created an extremely extenuating circumstance where instructors had to flip their courses online basically in 5 days. And so it was the understanding of the university that students were not expecting it and that the kind of outcomes were really up in the air and that students' academic performance might have, I guess, decreased because of that situation. For both the spring and the fall term, we haven't been talking about credit, no credit, neither us nor the university, because it's a consistent delivery and students kind of know what they're getting into. And I guess I'm not trying to say here that the online delivery that students are experiencing right now during the spring term is exactly the same as it would normally be in the classroom. We have certainly heard concerns about both teaching and course quality, and that's something that we're definitely looking to address. So we've put an online teaching quality form online on our website that you can fill out to flag a specific course that you have concerns about. And we've also been amalgamating feedback from Students' Council that has been passed to the associate deans to kind of pass down through their departments about what practices in terms of both teaching and assessment are effective for students, so that students are still able to learn and balance everything that's going on in their lives during this time.
Thank you again, Megan. I guess I'll also note that Megan has been putting some links to our website in the chat that you can check out to learn more about some of the answers to the questions that you are asking tonight. That being said, I will move on to the next question. So as a part-time student, I am limited to online or evening courses. During this time, having courses available online has been great, as I'm able to take courses that I wouldn't regularly be able to attend. Will online course offerings be reviewed and online course offerings be extended beyond the COVID pandemic? For example, it would be wonderful if completing the ARBIS program online was an option that came out of this pandemic. So Megan, would you like to take this one again?
Sure, I can definitely do that. So this is something that honestly hasn't been talked about yet. I think from the university side, they're definitely still trying to figure out some of the logistics for the fall term and how they're actually going to be able to offer all the courses that they need to offer and what to do about the courses that they just can't offer. So I think my answer on this one is going to have to be stay tuned. I think that the COVID-19 situation has definitely broadened all of our eyes when it comes to accessibility and what can be done through the internet. So it's a great question for really on a faculty and department basis for instructors and professors to consider what courses can be offered in the future. And I think that it can be really beneficial for students if they are able to expand those offerings. So it's something that Wusa would be in favor of advocating for when the time comes.
Thank you again, Megan. I also think that the next one is a Megan question, so I guess Megan will be talking a lot tonight. All right, so our next question is, how is Wusa responding to the Center for Extended Learning failing to consult with the Equity Office before imposing online proctoring spyware upon students? So Megan, I know you briefly touched on this, but would you like to expand?
Yeah, I can just add a little bit to my previous answer. I think that it is concerning that there's potential for this inherent risk of racial bias in the online proctoring software, and it's disappointing that the different kind of hubs at the University of Waterloo weren't communicating with each other. So I'm continuing to talk to the director for the Center for Extended Learning about students' concerns, which include, like I said, the equity piece as well as privacy and security.
Thank you, Megan. Our next question is, are there any standards and or guidelines that professors have to follow when teaching an online course? So far, it seems as though it is up to the discretion of the professor. Some are doing a good job, while others are making courses more difficult than usual. Again, academic question, putting it over to the VP Education, Megan.
Cool. I'm going to put a link in the chat. This is the university's coronavirus page with information for instructors. So typically online courses take years to develop. And so when you might have experienced these fully developed courses, they would be in like the big psych courses or in PD courses where there are online modules with videos and interactive infographics and things like that. That's the typical quality that a student can expect of an online course. Of course, with everything shifting just like that to online, there isn't time to develop these fully fledged online courses for every course that's being offered. So each faculty has put together some guidelines for instructors. So if you click on that page, you can look through to see your faculty and what the dean of that faculty is saying to their particular instructors. A couple things that apply pretty much university-wide are the idea that lectures or whatever method of delivering the content an instructor uses should be asynchronous. That means that students are able to access the content at any time and go back to it later if they weren't able to attend the live lecture. And that's important to accommodate people who might be in different time zones or might have childcare or elder care commitments. And the other direction that the university is giving is to move away from heavy weighted final assessments. So rather than a 60% exam that I might have seen in one of my courses, for example, instructors are being encouraged to shift towards multiple smaller assessments that are lower stakes in order to remove the pressure from students.
Thank you, Megan. And just a reminder, the link that Megan was referring to is in the chat box now. So if you're able, please go take a look at that. Our next question is about best practices that are being done by Wusa or will be done by Wusa to increase student engagement and enhancing a sense of community. I'm going to move this over to Nada, but before I do, I just want to say that I have a big passion for building a sense of community as a student in recreation and leisure and social development studies. It's a lot of what I study and what I do. So building that sense of community within Wusa is very important to me, and I think you can see a lot of that community building and coming together as one Wusa in our annual plan. But I'll let Nada talk a little bit more about some of those student life and campus life department strategies that we're coming up with.
Yeah, thank you, Abby. Yeah, definitely. You can all see how we really value student engagement from our annual plan. So that's something that I think all of us are passionate about, and that's something, and it's a reason why the Student Association exists. But in terms of best practices and to provide more concrete examples, the project that I'll be working on that I like to call volunteer retention is one of the ways that I want to increase student engagement through, because a lot of students feel like volunteer work needs to kind of add some sort of professional development to their experience, and that's something that I really appreciate, and that's something that I will be working on in terms of the volunteer retention program. Another thing, which is as simple as the volunteer appreciation that we hold every term. So since this term was fully online, our services still were operating. Our services still had coordinators and volunteers and executives. Our clubs still had executives and had members. And so it was really important for us to still appreciate our volunteers, even though that we're not on campus. And so if you are a volunteer within Wusa this term, make sure to register for our volunteer appreciation that will be happening towards the middle of July, actually July 22nd. So so that's another thing that we're really working on. And then the third thing that I really want to highlight as well is that I want to make sure that our student needs are always met, and I understand that student needs differ from a year to the other. And so in the annual plan, you'll also see that it's also one of my goals to take a look at our campus life fair and our welcome week activities and kind of assess how those are meeting our needs, or meeting the students' needs, the students that we serve. And so that's another strategy where it would increase our student engagement. As long as we're able to bring students to our events and we're being able to satisfy the need of creating that community, then I think we would succeed in that sense.
And I'd just like to add on to Nada's point, at the beginning of this town hall, I mentioned that as someone who's been very engaged in orientation for the last 4 years, I do really believe that our new student transition and orientation week in general has an opportunity to really create and foster that sense of belonging right at the start of a student's undergraduate career. So I'm hoping that by working with the university to create an agreement or a letter of understanding that Wusa is best placed to really house that orientation programming, because we have a greater understanding of how students want to be engaged and want to come and join our campus. So we're hoping that that's a really great opportunity for us to just further engage our students the moment they step foot onto campus as well. I'll move on to the next question. So this student has concerns about housing in Waterloo. So many rental companies and landlords have illegal policies, and since students are often unaware of these things are illegal and have no other housing options, they are forced to sign leases. Some examples of this illegal are the illegal key and rental deposits, required pad forms, or post-dated checks. It is also very hard for students to break a lease, and many students are trapped in a lease for the 2020-2021 year for housing that they no longer need. Megan, would you like to talk a little bit about some of the work that you are doing currently?
Yes, I can definitely do that. First, I just wanted to provide a quick bit of context. I believe a PAD form would be like a pre-authorized debit form. So that would be a form basically giving the landlord permission to take the money out of your bank account each month to pay your rent, just in case there was any confusion there. And this is something that we have also been hearing a lot about. I myself have a lease for September that I'm a little sad that I can't go home. Otherwise, I would be losing that money for my place in Waterloo. And so we're doing a couple things in response. Working with Laurier, we've encouraged students to fill out a survey talking about what their housing situation is like for the fall term. And then we're going to collaborate with my equivalent at the Laurier Students Union to talk to Catherine Fife, who is our local MPP, about some solutions that could help students in this situation. So some of the things that we're considering are like rent relief programs, similar to what has been implemented for commercial rent, to help students alleviate that financial burden, because we know that breaking a lease can be near impossible. In a broader sense, the housing situation surrounding the University of Waterloo is something that we've been looking into. My predecessor, Matt Garretts, started a housing report project to look into what the landscape is in terms of how much does housing cost, where is housing located, what challenges are students having. So I'm going to be continuing that project, and it's something that my new research and policy assistant is going to be working on. We're going to be working on collecting some primary and secondary data on what students are experiencing in order to better inform how we can help them, not just right now, but in the future.
Megan, I had an opportunity to read through some of Maria's comments that she left on this question as well. So I'll just follow up with a few of those questions. So what is Wusa doing to support students against illegal practices by landlords?
Good question. I'm just going to reopen. Did I do that right? I just want to make sure this gets recorded. Please bear with me. Okay, I think that should work. Yeah, so supporting students in their plight against illegal clauses and leases is something that's super important. So we have introduced our legal service. So if someone could kindly drop the link in the chat for me, essentially there's a number you can call, and you'll speak to the operator, who will then direct your call to a lawyer who can help you with discussing any issues that you have in your lease. Essentially, if you we're going to fight that. You would likely have to go to the landlord-tenant board. So support from a lawyer through the legal service is something that would be very helpful in that case. We've also been talking about what actions Wusa can take more broadly to this effect, but it's difficult to find a legislative solution to this problem. So we saw the implementation of the Ontario Standard Lease a couple years ago, which in theory should have fixed the issue because now landlords are required to use this standard lease. But what we've seen is landlords will just tack an appendix onto their lease that includes all of these same clauses that were supposed to be avoided by using the lease. And some of that is voided by the legislative changes. So for example, if there's a clause that says you can't have pets in your lease, according to the Residential Tenancy Act, that clause is just not in effect. It's null. And so I think that's something that Wusa can look at in the future, is how to advocate for more language like that to be in the Residential Tenancies Act. So Wusa, which is the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance, is going to be reviewing its paper on housing, transit, and community development this year. And we'll be opening consultation on that shortly, so you can keep your eye out on our social media channels there. But that's something that I hope will come out of that policy development process, and then we can take those recommendations to the provincial government to find more solutions like that.
And Megan, before we end this discussion, there was another part to the follow-up question that I think you and I can tackle a little bit. How is Wusa educating students on their legal rights for those who are not informed? In past, we've had an opportunity to have some people come and speak to students to provide them with additional information. But Megan, I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to some of the things that we could do in the future to support educating our students on their housing rights.
Yeah, so one of the things that Wusa has the ability to do as an organization is to create awareness campaigns using our social media presence and our ability to reach out to students. So I can definitely add this to the, there's a pencil that works, to our list of things to consider when we're doing planning for those in the future, because right now I think that those sorts of informational efforts have been a little bit ad hoc, but it's important to remember that we have new students coming in every year who might be signing leases and not aware of that sort of thing. So I'll see if we can make that dissemination of information a little more regular. Also, the little voice in my ear is just reminding me that as part of our legal program and previous campaigns, we do have some print materials that are available for students to educate them on their rights and what they should expect from a lease from a landlord. So I'm going to also make a note to follow up and make sure that those resources are available online, since it's a little hard for me to hand you a brochure right now.
Thanks, Megan. So there is one fun question, but I'm going to get through some of the more academic and social concern questions, and then we'll move on to the more fun questions that I see available here. Vincent had a follow-up question, Megan. So follow up to the online proctoring FAQ posted. The FAQ says walk card will be accepted as ID when using ProctorU, but students in CO 342 reported that they were told they could not use their walk card by the proctors. This was counter to what the Center for Extended Learning promised the CO 342 instructor. Why is the Center for Extended Learning misleading instructors?
Thank you for bringing this up. Vincent, I know we've been kind of emailing back and forth, but I don't know if I've heard about this specific issue. So I'm definitely going to follow up on it. That was the same information that I received from the Center for Extended Learning, that walk card would be a permissible form of ID, just as it would be in any in-person proctored exam. So this is concerning, and I'm going to look into it.
Megan, is this a great opportunity for students in this class to be filling out our online form? Great. Thanks, Megan. The next question that I will direct over to Alana. Will the SLC be open 24/7 again in the fall term?
As it stands right now, yes. Unless we get any certain direction from the university that prevents us from doing so, it works out in the best interest of our students and our staff for us to do so at least Monday to Friday. So we will be putting it out on social media when any decisions are made, but currently it's open from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday to Friday. So I really hope so, is my answer, and it is very likely.
Thank you for that update, Alana. We will be making posts about any changes to the hours of the SLC on our social media channels. So make sure that you're following all of our channels at your Wusa, so then you can get some of those really essential updates. All right, so there is a fun question. So I guess we'll kind of go around in a circle and I'll call out on the executive to answer this one. So this very important, soup or salad? So Megan, would you like to go first?
These are the hard-hitting questions. I'm going to have to go with both.
What if you had to pick one? You're muted, Megan. Is Megan still muted for anyone else, or is it just me?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I just did that whole thing without my mic on and my volume down. All right, let's try this again. Okay. Sometimes it is too hot for soup, so I'm going to have to go with salad. But I would like to just add like a little asterisk, which is that if a salad is like 90% iceberg lettuce, that like is fake salad, and I don't like that. It has to be like all kinds of tasty fruits and veggies and cheese and fancy greens. I really like arugula personally.
You're very selective with your salad.
All right, Nada, would you like to go next?
Soup all the way, and the more creamy the soup is, the better. However, if I were to choose between soup and beet salad, I would go for the beet salad all the way.
Alana, do you have an answer?
Yes, definitely soup. I agree with Megan on the salad with the iceberg lettuce, but I don't agree with Nada. I would prefer a broth soup to a creamy soup any day.
All right, I guess I am the one with the definitive answer. I do not like soup, so I will have to go with salad, and I do really like any kind of salad. So thank you for this really fun question. If you have other fun questions you want to ask, go ahead. But I will be moving back on to some of the more questions about the fall and the spring term. So this next question is, with all our classes now being online, the university surprisingly hasn't put out a lot of informational emails or web pages regarding ergonomics. Is this on the university's radar to discuss this topic, or has this been discussed by Wusa or Wusa Council this term? I think this topic is important for student wellness and should be taken somewhat seriously to avoid long-term consequences of working setups. I don't know if any other exec wants to jump in, but thank you for bringing this to my attention. This is actually not something that I had on my radar personally. And I would love an opportunity to bring this up in discussions with Campus Wellness and other partners that we meet with on campus. I will be meeting with Campus Wellness in the next few weeks, so I'd be happy to bring this up on your behalf. And I see Megan's making a note of it, but I've also made a note of it in my own personal meeting notes for those specific meetings. But if any other executive have any other information from meetings that you've been in that you would like to share, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, I will say that I'll look into it. And if any counselors are on the line and this is something that you would like to talk about at a next council meeting, please feel free to bring it up. Otherwise, I will put it on my radar to bring up at a future council meeting if I don't receive any answers from Campus Wellness. I don't see any of the executive unmuting, so I think that means that my answer flew it out of the water. So I'm going to move on to the next question, which I think is actually a really good question to remind everyone. Is there a place we can go back and watch this stream later? Now, as I've mentioned previously, I've never used this before, so I have no idea what's going on. So I'll defer this one to Megan.
Yeah, I can answer this one. I clearly have a tenuous grasp of the website as I have forgotten to unmute myself multiple times. Yes, you can view the stream afterwards. I believe the URL should stay the same. If not, you would just need to go to our Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association page on Crowdcast, and then you can find the link to watch this live stream. And if I have done this correctly, all of the questions should be tagged with the timestamps in the video. So if you have a particular question that you wanted to look at the answer to, you should be able to click through and find that.
Megan, what will we do without you? I do want to remind everyone that we're still taking questions in the Ask a Question box. So if you have a serious question that you would like us to answer, or if you have some fun questions that you would like to just ask to learn more about us, we're more than happy to take the time to answer them. I'm glad that I said this because that means that just got another question here. Great. So this next question is, I saw some posts on Facebook by Raise and the ISA about Equity for Who's campaign. Speaking about some of the dismissive actions, some of university staff against BIPOC students, how is Wusa supporting this campaign? So I guess, Nada, I'll let you chat a little bit about this topic. Wusa has been very supportive of the Equity for Who group of students, and we are working very hard to work with them to advocate to the university administration on their behalf. We actually supported and dedicated some of our resources to the letter and its creation. So we are very happy to be supporting Equity for Who and their continued efforts to hold the university accountable. But Nada, I'll let you take this on a little bit more because you work very closely with our Associate Vice President Equity.
Yeah, so Wusa was approached by the group of students who created Equity for Who, and when we were approached with the letter that all of you can see on Instagram and that Wusa has shared, we very much wanted to offer our complete support for our student body because it's very important to be able to recognize that these systemic issues do exist and that something needs to happen about it. So this is where Wusa comes in and supports Equity for Who, and we're actually going to meet with a few university admin next week or so. But again, it's not going to be Equity for who's going to be meeting with admin. It's going to be Wusa acting as kind of a conduit rather than a spokesperson. So this would be our the intention of this meeting would be to, again, bring those asks to our admin, since the letter was addressed to University of Waterloo admin and executives, which is very important to note because a lot of students have worked on this letter, and obviously it was very important to still stand behind them, because if we didn't, then what are we doing as a student association? So this is where we are at right now with the letter and with Equity for Hope.
I will also add to what Nada said and say that us as the Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association and as your executive, we do have a direct line to some of these higher up university admin. So we're able to really get in a room with them and have these conversations and bring forward concerns from students. And I hope that in future, throughout our year and in future years of Wusa Exec, that they will be open to working with and collaborating with our student groups who are doing really amazing advocacy work, and that we'll be able to put our support behind them and provide them with resources to really make really important change on our campus. So that's something that I'll add to what Nada has explained here. So Megan, there's another housing question. How is Wusa preparing to deal with rent prices as they will inevitably rise due to the influx of students after COVID?
This is a question that is honestly a little more future thinking than I have really put thought into, because right now we've been really focused on the situation that students are currently facing with being locked into their leases. I guess part of the ongoing advocacy piece that I mentioned earlier is that affordability is a really important pillar of advocacy that Wusa is doing, both from how much your education directly costs for tuition, as well as all of your other living expenses, including rent. So as part of our research and preparation of the housing report and future discussions, both with provincial and municipal levels of government, affordability in terms of how much landlords can increase rent by and what kinds of like other costs they might be trying to put on to students are really important key points there. But unfortunately, I don't have any concrete actions for you right now.
Thank you, Megan. We do still have some time together tonight, so I will continue to encourage people to add some questions to the Ask a Question box. So it's just below. Megan, as this is the first time that we've done a town hall, while people are still coming up with questions, is there anything that you were hoping we could chat a little bit about tonight, in addition to answering some student questions?
Sure. I think one topic that I think would be really valuable to talk about is students' experiences during the spring term with a fully online delivery. Obviously, we are hoping to continue to advocate for quality course and teaching content in the fall term. So if any student is interested in coming up here and joining us to have a conversation about what they've experienced with the spring term, just let me know in the chat and I can pull you up. I think we can only have 4 of us up here at a time, so someone will get booted off. But if any student is interested in doing that, just shoot a message in the chat and we can do that. Or if you just want to tell us about your experiences in writing, I'll still be taking notes and that would be helpful as well.
So I guess just to reiterate, we're taking questions in the chat, but if you would also like to share your experience with the spring term, you can come up here and join us and share your experience with those who are live right now. Megan knows more about how to do that, so I'm not going to try to explain it, but I am kind of opening the floor to the students who are with us today to use this opportunity to ask us questions or share your experience. So write in the chat if you'd like to share. I don't know how much time to give people to make the decision if they want to share or not. You can really share anything with us here. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel really weird having some awkward silence as we wait for the next question to come in. Oh, perfect. Awesome. All right, so we have a few more questions. Having a full-time course load online is very unhealthy, physically and mentally, due to the amount of screen time. Has the university considered or discussed this at all? I guess I'll begin and say that I haven't had these conversations with the university at the moment, but I can add this to my list of topics for some different meetings that I'm in. But Megan, I'm not sure if you've had some of these conversations with some university admin.
I think I haven't spoken specifically about the screen time aspect of things, and I think that's something that would be great for Abby to bring up in the meetings she has in the future with campus wellness. I would say it's tied closely to students' concerns about workload. I've heard that students are spending sometimes 12 hours a day on their computer trying to complete their coursework, and that's certainly not a healthy work school life balance. So it's an area of ongoing concern for me. And I'm happy to report that when I started discussing the workload concerns with the associate deans of the various faculties, the feedback from students was fairly positively received. And if instructors weren't able to implement some of those suggestions in the spring term, I hope that they're going to be able to make those changes for the fall term, adjusting their syllabus or their assignment schedule and things like that, so that in the next few months, it becomes more manageable for students.
A lot of Megan questions tonight. The next one is Wusa doing anything for spring and fall term to support co-op students that can't find placements?
So I wouldn't say that Wusa is doing much personally to support students. At Co-op Students Council a couple weeks ago, we heard an update from Co-op and Experiential Education about what they're doing to help students find placements. So I know that their kind of employer recruitment team is working pretty much overtime to try and make those connections. So they're reaching out personally to employers who maybe haven't hired a co-op student in a couple terms to say, hey, you can get a co-op student. Is that something you're interested in? So I think that co-op truly does have students' best interests in mind when helping them find a placement. The other thing that I would add is that co-op is continuing to relax the regulations on what constitutes a co-op term. So if you head to the fall term flexible pathways website, which I'll put in the chat in just a second, you can see how the requirements might have differed from a previous co-op term. So maybe a job that you're able to arrange or 2 part-time opportunities that you're able to put together can count towards a co-op term. I guess on a personal note, I would say I'm hiring a co-op student. So that's one less person who will be out of a job as a result of my student research and policy assistant position.
I think I speak for all of us when I say we're really excited about our incoming co-op student at Wusa. The next question is for Nada, so I'm going to direct this one over to you. Do you have any ideas for how to get students to engage with Wusa clubs and services while classes are online? We have many great services, Mates, Glow, etc. But in my personal experience as a volunteer, it seems like there is much less engagement than in previous terms. How can we encourage students to use the services?
Yeah, great question. So I think a key to getting students to be engaged more with our services and our clubs, especially in this online realm, is to make sure that things are accessible online. And so this can mean a lot of things. So accessibility in terms of meeting times. So let's say someone is out of the country and is living in a different time zone. Accessibility is a key part here in terms of being able to meet with the with, let's say, your exec team at a particular time. So yes, I do. I hear you, and I understand that student engagement definitely might be lower this term than any other term, and that's because we are online and because we aren't on campus, and things might not be as accessible as they used to be. But I think moving towards the fall term, what we will try to do is we will kind of reconvene as clubs and as services, and especially through the services manager and the club's manager, to ensure that our exec teams are aware of some of the barriers that might stand in front of some of our volunteers who want to get involved but also don't know whether their time will allow them to, or don't know whether their online coursework, because it's an unsure thing, they don't know whether that will allow them to get involved or not. So that's definitely something that we are working on, because the spring term did come a little bit quickly, but I like to think of this as a learning opportunity for us to go through the fall term. And even though it will be a hybrid model in terms of academics, as far as we know right now, clubs and services are still going to be operating online until we get further information. So yeah, so we are definitely working on that key factor of making sure that our students are finding our services and clubs accessible to either use or volunteer with.
Thank you for that great information, Nada. I will move on to the next question. So thank you, Thomas, for putting this into the questions and answers. A lot of people have been wondering what the state of winter 2021 is right now, whether it will be fully or partially online. I understand that may be a bit vague right now, but is there anything you can say about that? I guess I'll start, and then if any of the other executive have anything to add, please unmute so then I can see that you would like to speak next. In conversations that I've had with the associate provost students, it looks like right now, they're just beginning some of the discussions about what the winter term will look like, and we probably won't know more until we get closer to the fall term. A lot of the discussions that are happening right now are in regards to academics and not really in regards to programming on campus or students being on campus. So I guess the real answer is, for right now, we're still trying to get the hang of fall term. And then once we get closer to solidifying fall, we'll have a little more information about the winter term. Woosa will continue to keep students updated by sharing some of the statements from the university or sharing information we know. So please stay up to date with us. But are there any other executives who have anything they would like to add to my response? I don't see anyone unmuting, and I see some thumbs up. So I'll move on to the next question. So this question is, what counseling services are accessible to students who are outside of the country? So Cannon, this is actually a really great question. I've been working with counseling services. We meet every few weeks to kind of just catch up and have some updates. So Cannon is referring to a very large issue on our campus where students who are living internationally and even outside of the province of Ontario are having a lot of issues accessing counseling services online because they are out of Ontario. So right now, Counseling Services is working with their own colleges to kind of work around some of those barriers to be able to offer services to students. Right now, they're able to do some emergency services, so crisis services. So if you are in crisis, you're able to call them and they're able to assist you, but you're unable to access regular counseling. So I'm checking up on Counseling Services every few weeks to make sure that they are continuously making progress to better support our students and our international students. I'll also say that for the issue with students living out of province or in the United States, you can also access our Empower Me service as well. That has its own workaround that they're able to connect you with counselors where you are. So that's kind of how they get around some of those rules. So I would definitely recommend if you're living in Canada or the US, you do have access to that. But unfortunately for right now, we're still working with Counseling Services to get answers about better supporting our international students through Counseling Services. Does anyone else have anything they would like to add? And thank you, Megan, for putting the link to Empower Me in the chat. Please go and check that out if you're living in outside of Ontario, in Ontario, outside of Ontario, and in the United States. So the next question is, with everything being online, what do your days look like as an exec? Are you still working from Waterloo or somewhere else? So I guess this is another question where we can kind of go around in a circle and talk a little bit about what our days look like. I'll again start with Megan. Would you like to talk a little bit about your day-to-day?
Sure. I think probably the biggest change is as opposed to being in the office, I'm here at my desk in my bedroom in my basement. I am still in Waterloo, and I am thankful that part of the way into quarantine, I decided to build myself a new desktop computer so I wasn't struggling along on my laptop all the time. Most of my days start when my first meeting is, which is usually around 10 o'clock, and then end sometime in the dinner time, after dinner time realm. Still working on that work-life balance. I guess another big change, which everyone has experienced on the exec team, that is that all of our meetings are virtual now. So we spend a lot of time on Teams calls, or for me with some of my external partners, Zoom calls in between my regular work that happens on my computer.
Thanks, Megan. Alana, would you like to go next?
My phone glitched for a second there. Can you repeat the question for me?
Yeah, of course. That's another thing that we're getting used to in our day-to-day, technical difficulties. So this question has to do with what your days look like as an executive. Are you working from Waterloo or somewhere else?
Yeah, I am still in Waterloo. I live not too far from campus. I go in at least once a week just because there's some administrative things that I still have to take care of. But mostly I tend to wake up for my first meeting like Megan. And I'm lucky if I have maybe 2 to 3 hours in my day where I don't have meetings necessarily. And I tend to work late into the evening trying to finish actual things rather than being on meetings. And yeah, I try to get out of the house, go for a walk, play some Pokemon, get myself a nice Starbucks, you know. Get a little break in between here and there, but that's mostly what my days are.
Nada, would you like to go ahead?
Yes. So towards the beginning of the quarantine period, so kind of like May-ish, bleeding into into June. I missed a month there. Wow. Yeah. So for like the very beginning, I worked from my mom's place in Mississauga, so I actually wasn't in Waterloo. But then I realized that I can focus better in Waterloo, and so I came back to my apartment here, and I'm working from home. And similar to Megan and Elena, a lot of my meetings do start at 10 o'clock, but unfortunately that would mean that I'd need to stay later than 6 p.m. still working. And with the online shift, there are a lot of there's a lot more check-ins that occur online, even if it's just for like 5 minutes or even 15 minutes. Sometimes they last for an hour. Imagine a check-in for an hour. That's a long time. But yeah, so because of the online nature of things, you can't just kind of give someone a call or drop into someone's office, and so that also takes up a significant amount of time. I would speak for myself in my calendar, but I'm also sure that also takes up time from the other execs' calendar. And so, yeah, I'd be very lucky if I had some time to be able to go outside. But I've been trying to, sometimes I work from the park, which is great. I love to look at the green scenery, so that's also great. And yeah, with working online, we also have the flexibility to just take a 5-minute walk and then go right back and pick up where you left. So I'll pass it on to Abby.
Thanks, Nada. So I guess like the other executive, I do spend most of my days in meetings. So my typical day starts around 8:30, 9 o'clock when meetings start and end around 6:37 when the meetings end. I'm pretty lucky that I work with some really amazing people. So for most of the day when I'm in meetings, it doesn't really feel like work because we're doing a lot of really meaningful things and working really collaboratively. So I got pretty lucky with the executive that I work with and the full-time staff that support me, and as well as the part-time student staff that support me here too. So a lot of my day is spent in meetings and working really hard, but I am pretty fortunate that it's with people that I really care about. So it doesn't feel like a long day of work. Not well, some days it does, but other days it's mostly just feel pretty lucky to work with the people I do. Hope that answers your question, Matt. The next question is from Matt, but I copy and pasted it into the question and answer. So it is Wusa still hiring students for part-time marketing roles in the fall? I actually don't think I know the answer to that question. I feel I probably should.
I think I know the
okay,
answer.
Megan.
Based on leads, we are no longer hiring students for part-time marketing roles in the fall, but we are, correction, coming through live here on my screen. We are hiring designers to work on videos and to do photography. We're also hiring a digital media coordinator. And we have one position open on Leads right now, which is the volunteer student event coordinator to help us out with programming in the term, including the virtual fall welcome week. So as always, you can keep an eye on wusa.ca/opportunities for all of the roles that we have available. And I am going to make sure that those ones that I just mentioned that aren't up there will get put up there ASAP.
Thanks for that, Megan. I'll also just give Carrie a shout out. Carrie, I didn't say all those nice things because I knew you were listening. I said all those nice things because I mean it, and I'm very happy to work with the people that I do. So just letting everyone know that I wasn't lying and I wasn't saying that just because Carrie is listening. So the next question is actually about our annual plan. And it seems like Mike joined the party a little late because he missed our introductions, but that's okay because there's probably other people who came a little late too. So I'm wondering if the executives wanted to go around and say again the section of the annual plan that you are most excited about. And again, Megan, if you could, there is a link. Could you put the link to our executive action plan in the chat? It should be on our website. So wusa.ca/ I think it's exec dash, oh, I can't remember. It's on our executive page. You can just drop that link in the chat so everyone can take a look at the final version of the annual plan for 2020-2021. But I guess I'll start again. There are two main sections of the annual plan that I am most excited about. The first is the review of the Student Life Endowment Fund to make the process easier for students to access that funding, make it more accessible. And then also an increased funding for our equity initiatives across campus. And then also, as a student who's been very involved in orientation for the last 4 years, I am very excited to be working on an agreement with the university to really solidify Wusa's involvement in orientation and be part of those larger orientation week decisions. I guess I'll go around in the order that I've been doing. So Megan, would you like to do your big annual plan highlight?
Sure. I guess to talk about something different than what I talked about before, I am really excited for town halls. I don't know about the audience, but the four of us are having a lot of fun answering your questions, both like the serious ones and the ones about us and the silly ones. It's all awesome. And I think that even though we're missing out on that like literal face-to-face time with all of our students right now, it's great to have this opportunity where at least you can see our faces and we can have a bit of a conversation. So that's probably what's exciting me most. And I'm looking forward to hopefully being back on campus in the winter so that we could have one of these in person. Even if we have to all sit 6 feet apart, that would be okay, because then I'd get to see everyone's faces.
You're right, Megan. It is a little, I don't know, it feels like I'm just talking to the three of you, but there are 66 other people here that I don't get to see. And that's pretty unfortunate. I wish I could see everyone's face. I guess next I'll go with Alana. You can talk a little bit about your annual plan highlight.
Yeah, sure. I actually have worked for Wusa for 5 years now before this, and I started at Bomber. So working on that, the implementation of that plan and the architectural designs and everything is a really exciting part of my job right now. It really means a lot to me, and I love being able to play a part in this. And also, I started at Bomber as a host, and I worked my way up, and I got so much experience, and I made such good connections with everyone. And I'm really looking forward to having the opportunity to work with our commercial operations team so that more students can get the opportunities that I got and flourish in any way that they can.
Nada, would you like to go next?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm excited about all of it. I feel like all of us as executives, we've put a lot of hard work into creating an annual plan that actually captures what we want to accomplish this year and what we really want to do for students. And of course, by no means is this action plan the annual plan the only goals that we want to accomplish. It's just a subset of all the other things that we have in mind and are trying to work towards. So to be honest with you, all of it, I'm excited about all of it. And I am really hopeful that we're able to accomplish everything in it and be able to work with our full-time staff, our part-time student staff, our student body, student council, board of directors, everyone. But if you were to ask me about one particular thing that I'm really excited about, I would have to say creating that equity fund to fund more equity initiatives. And I know I stole it from you, Abby, but technically you stole it from my brain. So yeah, that's one thing that I'm really, really excited about. Yeah.
That was really fun, just talking a little bit more about our plans for the year, the annual plan. Thanks, Mike, for being a little late to the party so we can re-answer that question. I'm really excited to be sharing this plan with everyone here, with the rest of our membership, and on Sunday, sharing it with our Students' Council as well. So thank you again for listening to us chat a little bit about the annual plan. You won't hear us stop talking about it. We're going to be updating you all year long with information about what we've accomplished so far. So just stay tuned for that. We really want to focus on transparency and letting you know when we're working on things and when things are really getting done to improve student experience. So keep asking us your questions and keep taking a look at the annual plan and making sure that we're checking off everything that we want to get accomplished. So Megan, I'll move on to the next question here. How is COVID going to impact part-time staff positions within Wusa? So Alana, I'll throw this one over to you.
Yeah, I am not gonna lie, COVID has dampened my hopes and dreams a little bit for the short term. Um, we will, iNews is actually open right now, and we're hoping to ramp up once the SLC is open for longer hours. And in the fall, we do know that there's going to be at least a few thousand students on campus in the city coming to campus, and I'm really hoping that the offices will be open. So I don't think that we will have the capability of hiring as many part-time staff as we would like in our commercial operations or that we generally have in there. But we are expanding and we will be opening for more hours, and part-time jobs will be necessary for implementing those things, especially if, like, say, Turnkeys open 24 hours again. And that really just all depends on, like, is the bookstore open? And I think all of that really comes from what the university says and is allowing to happen on campus. And we have created a COVID task force that involves a lot of, like, our society representatives and someone from the safety office and our commercial operations team. And they're keeping updated on all the news from the government, all the news from the university, and trying to implement a plan based on all of those regulations that are coming in. So, yeah.
Thank you, Alana, for taking on that question. I am being mindful of time and noticing that we only have 2 minutes left, if I'm correct. Someone nod at me. Yes, I think we only have 2 minutes left. So being the good moderator that I am, I'm going to quickly answer one more question and then do a quick conclusion. So the question, there's actually 2 of the same one here. Are you planning on doing a town hall every term? Yes, our plan is to do one each term that we are in office, because we've found that opening up a dialogue, especially while we are online and you can't just pop into our offices, this is a really great opportunity for you to share some concerns with us, because as you've heard, there are things that you've brought up tonight that were not on our radar, and putting them on our radar means that we can do something about them. So this has been a really great space for the 4 of us to really learn more about what's on students' minds and what your concerns are, so that we can actually take them forward and ask the difficult questions and make sure that the university also has it on their radar. Especially during COVID-19, there's a lot of times where things are moving so fast that things fall through. And we want to make sure that these big student concerns, these things that really matter to you, aren't falling through the cracks and are getting to the right people. So yes, we plan to do this every term that we're in office, and we hope that future executive will continue on this new tradition that we've started to continue to engage with students, to really open up this dialogue and create meaningful change. That being said, I do want to thank everyone for joining us. We hope that you'll join us again in the fall and share your stories and ask questions. I do want to do a quick call back to our earlier land acknowledgement and really encourage everyone here to begin the process of working to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism by continuing to educate yourself on your local community and land. So there is the link in the chat for you to check out where you are right now and continue to educate yourself so you can always learn more and do better. We look forward to our next opportunity to meet and answer your questions at our fall town hall. Please don't hold your questions until then. Reach us at exec@wusa.ca, or Carrie has so nicely put all of our individual emails in the chat as well, but you can find all of our contact information online. Continue to bring your concerns and questions to us so that we can work on your behalf. We're really here to support you, and we want to make sure that we have all of your concerns so that we can continue to work and do good work on behalf of all undergraduate students. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in and add to what I have closed here, or if you just want to say goodbye. But thank you again on behalf of myself and the exec team for joining us tonight.
Thank you all so much.
I guess I would just say thank you. Thank you for all your questions, and thanks for listening to us chat and watching me talk with my microphone muted. Like Abby said, our emails are always there, so feel free to reach out to us and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
And I just want to add, Ina does make a good point. Always reach out to your societies as well. I meet with the society presidents regularly, and they bring all your concerns to me. So reach out to your society presidents, your society executives, and your counselors, and they'll bring all your concerns to the Wusa exec. We love to hear from all students, so please personally send us an email or contact your student representatives. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.